Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to be looking at some brand new cards that have been revealed over the past couple of weeks. Now, there are some new cards that are going to be featured within Prismatic Evolutions that I haven't quite looked at yet, and I did want to look at them because actually some of them are kind of decent. Not going to be a super long video, but I did want to mention and look at some of these cards because some of them are actually like fairly playable, so it will be exciting to take a look at what these cards do. Of course, the Prismatic Evolution set is going to be a pretty interesting set because it's going to be a lot of like different artworks of cards and stuff. It's more of a mini set than an actual like main set, but still be interesting to see what some of these new cards do because I think some of them may have an impact on the game, like I said. But if y'all are new here to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 19,000 subs, and I'll leave a link to Poke Beach down below if you want to go check out the cards for yourself. So I guess we'll start off. We got some of these new artworks here. A lot of new artworks actually did get revealed, even for some of the ancient and future Pokemon. We're not here to really look at that, but just wanted to highlight my boy Goldengo. Is that better than the other art we already have, or he's just sitting there posing like this? I don't know. It's pretty cool. All right, so we do have a brand new SPEC here, Treasure Gadget. Now, apparently, Prismatic Evolutions is going to have 5 SPEC cards, something like that. So we've only seen 2, pretty sure, revealed. So there might be more. I'm not too sure. But Treasure Gadget, search your deck for up to 5 Pokemon Tool cards, reveal them, and put them in your hand. Now, not really the greatest SPEC. Now, I don't think this is the worst SPEC. I've seen some people say it's the worst SPEC. I don't think it is. I think this card is not fantastic, obviously, but I don't think that it's unplayable. There are actually a decent amount of Pokemon in the format that want to put tools either into play or discard them in order to do big damage. There's Rotom V-Star, which, wants to discard a ton of tool cards. There's an Electrode from 151 that discards a bunch of tools from play. There's Garbodor. There's a Pachirisu. So while this card won't see a lot of play overall, there are at least Pokemon in the format that need tools. And, if we ever get any more Pokemon in the format that need tool cards to operate, this card will be the optimal SPEC. I mean, imagine playing Arven with one of those cards. You can Arven for 6 tool cards because you can grab this card and an extra tool with the Arven, and then you Treasure Gadget for even more tools. So there is actually room for this card to see play in tool drop decks. Outside of that, I don't think it's going to be playable. I know that you can get tools, and there are stuff like Force Seal and TM Evo stuff, but like for the most part, you're probably never going to play this card outside of within those tool drop decks. All right, another new supporter we're getting. So we got these like 9 different artworks of this new supporter card called, I think, Black Belt or Black Belt's Practice. And basically, during this turn, attacks used by your Pokemon do 40 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, this is kind of similar to Kieran, where Kieran allows you to do 30 more damage to Vs and EXs, where Black Belt just lets you do 40 more damage flat out to anything. Now, 40 more damage is a significant amount of damage to be doing, and for a supporter for turn, it's actually not too bad. I mean, again, 40 damage is a lot. You can do some pretty big numbers out of nowhere with this card. It is better than Kieran in that regards, where you're, doing that 10 extra damage. This card could be good with cards like Charizard EX, where 40 damage can make a big difference. Imagine playing Max Belt and Black Belt's Practice with Charizard. You're doing 90 more damage with Burning Darkness. That is absurd. So Charizard might play this card. Yeah, really, like, a lot of decks could play it, right? Just, it's a pretty solid card. 40 more damage makes a big difference. I mean, even Pokemon that do 200 damage, like Hydreigon, can now do 240 damage, which is kind of cool. So, I don't know. Definitely not a bad supporter card. Probably will be like a niche card, kind of like Kieran, where it's not going to be, like, super playable, but it's good enough where it actually might be, might find a home in some decks. Because, like I said, 40 damage is a lot. And it works on any Pokemon, so it doesn't have to just be against the X's and GXs like with Kieran. You can do it on, like, one prizers and stuff, too, which is kind of cool. So, definitely not a bad card at all. There's this new Seaking we're getting to does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. A pretty mediocre card, obviously unplayable. But the Black Belt, definitely not bad. All right, we got a new Seaking here. Now, this card is actually pretty interesting. It's another Festival lead card. Now, I didn't think we were going to get another Festival lead card for a while, but if you're playing the Festival deck, we now have a way to evolve our Goldeen. Now, Goldeen is not bad in that deck. It's kind of just more of a pivot card with a basic ability with Festival lead, so you can use it as a pivot with Rescue Board with Thwacky. But now we have a Seaking that can actually attack. So yeah, it's got that same ability where if you have Festival Grounds in play, this Pokemon can attack twice. And then it's got the attack Rapid Draw that does 60 damage, and then you get to draw 2 cards. So theoretically, you can do 120 damage for 1 energy, and you get to draw essentially 4 cards, because you would be doing the attack twice, so you'd be drawing 2 more cards. Honestly, not a bad card for that deck. Now, 60 damage isn't a whole lot of damage. I'd rather be attacking with Dipplin most of the time anyways, because at least Dipplin is going to take knockouts. Plus, there's not really that many relevant Pokemon weak to water right now in the format. But, if you play this with, like, Defiance Band, you could do 180, so you could knock out a Squawkabilly and then, draw 4 cards. You can play this with, like, Max Belt or something, which I think that deck already plays. So then, you're doing even more damage. Or, you know what, you could play this. Well, actually, Max Belt would let you do 220 damage. Then you could do 220 on a basic EX and then take extra prizes. Or play this with Black Belt, the new supporter we just talked about. There you go. Yeah, not a bad card. I mean, if you're playing a Festival deck, definitely not a bad card to play in that deck. Festival Grounds has never really been like a super good or competitive deck, unfortunately. Too much hostility in the format with Iron Hands and Dragapult and stuff. But you know what? If that deck ever becomes somewhat playable in the same vein that United Wings works, then maybe this deck actually could be good now that we have a decent Seaking in the format. Also has a 1 retreat cost, so you can play with Rescue Board still with the Goldeen. All right, next up is Regigigas. This card might be the best card in the entire set. I am not joking when I say that. This card is actually very powerful. It's got the attack Jewel Breaker for 4 colorless energy, does 100 damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a Terra Pokemon, you do 230 more damage. So Pokemon literally designed this card to 1-hit KO Charizard EX. I find that super hilarious. So this, like I said, is actually the best card in the entire set. This card is kind of insane. Now, I think this card will be playable within certain decks, like Lost Box can play it because you can Mirage Gate to it. But I think the big deck that will get a gigantic buff with this, and this actually might put this deck back into the map, is Lugia V-Star. Lugia V-Star gets so much value out of playing Regigigas, it is insane. You just put 4 energy on this thing in Lugia, and it kills a Charizard. Now, there is Cinccino, which does the exact same thing, right? Cinccino one-shots Charizard. So stage 1 Pokemon needs 5 energy. Charizard can play around Cinccino fairly easily most of the time, right? Regigigas is a bit harder to play around because it's a basic Pokemon. As long as you have 2 Archeops in play, you can bench the Gigas, double Archeops to it, and then blow up Charizard in 1 hit. That is kind of scary. This card, being able to one-shot a Charizard EX is ridiculous. Also, it's got 160 HP, so you can't get KO'd by Dusknoir in return, which is kind of the issue with Cinccino sometimes. It's like Charizard pops the Dusknoir, knocks out the Cinccino or something, and it's like, okay, well, that sucks. Whereas with Regigigas, that can't happen because it's got so much HP. So yeah, this card is really good. I mean, also, keep in mind, it knocks out other big Terra Pokemon like Hydreigon and Dragapult also get 1-hit KO'd by this card, or any other playable like Terra Evolution Pokemon, this card one-shots. This is a very powerful card. Like I said, this genuinely could be the best card in the set. I'm not kidding, because it's really good in Lugia. It could be really good in Lost Box as a way to one-shot Charizard. You have to commit 2 Mirage Gates to it, but I mean, it's one-shot Charizard, bro. It's pretty good. And like I said, can't get killed by Dusknoir in return, which is probably one of the biggest parts about this card. Also, keep in mind, this card is really good within Regis. I forgot about Regis. Regis also will still be in the format. This could be a really good card to play in Regis because you can use this within the Regi deck. Now, you'd have to have 2 Gigas in play. You have to have this Gigas, and then you have to have the other Regigigas in play. But now Regis has a way to one-shot Charizard on one of their Regis, which is really, really cool. So, yeah, this card, like I said, could be the best card in the set. Very powerful card. All right, finally, the last card to talk about here that got revealed is the new Budew. Now, this card is also pretty good. This card got a little bit of conversation on Twitter because of his attack, Itchy Pollen. Now, it is a baby Pokemon. In fact, this is like the first Budew card literally since Stormfront. It's been a very long time since we've had a Budew card. And this card, thankfully, is playable. Itchy Pollen does 10 damage for 0 energy, and then your opponent cannot play any item cards from their hand. So it's basically like a Bayonet where you item lock your opponent. Now, Budew is obviously not perfect, unlike Bayonet, where, it's got 30 HP, bro. I mean, it's going to get knocked out pretty easily. It's Monkey Dory food, it's Dragapult food, it's Lost Mine food. But you are item locking your opponent. So the point of Budew is it gets to slow your opponent down before they get to play the game. We're kind of in this super hostile, aggressive meta right now, where genuinely games can be over by the second turn of the game. Like, it's very common for that to happen. So Pokemon have designed this card as a way to slow the game down a little bit. Now, unfortunately, I don't think Budew is going to be very good when it comes out, because I just don't think there's a whole lot of value in Budew right now when it releases. However, I do think maybe when rotation comes and V-Stars and all these like super turbo like Pokestop and Lost Box, all these like fast like cards leave the format, I think this card will be good. It's a great card for setup. It reminds me a lot of the old Spiritomb from Platinum Arceus, where Spiritomb had an ability when it's in the active spot, both players were item locked, and you also use Spiritomb to evolve your Pokemon. This kind of reminds me of that, where you're item locking your opponent, and this kind of just buys you time to set up your board. This card is really good for evolving decks like Charizard. Very good card. Is it better than Cleffa, though, in that regards, where Cleffa is also really good for setup, and it kind of is in that same vein. It's a baby Pokemon that does that. Cleffa is pretty good. I mean, it's got a free retreat cost. It's not bad at all. Budew gets to slow your opponent down. Also, doing 10 damage, sometimes you do this enough times, maybe it gets to the point where your opponent has taken too much damage, and then you can one-shot them with something. It's possible. But, yeah, I think Budew is actually a fairly playable card, and I think that it is another pretty solid card to come out of this set. Might not be good right away, but eventually I think this card will see some play. But, yeah, those were the new cards that got revealed from Prismatic Evolutions. Again, it's a mini set, so, I don't think there's a whole lot of new cards. But, some of these were interesting. Treasure Gadget was, kind of cool for some decks. Black Belt might see some play. Regigigas, like I said, might be the best card revealed. It's so good within Lugia and Lost Box and potentially Regis. And the new Budew might be good down the road. This card will definitely be playable at some point in the future. Maybe not right now when it comes out because the format's too fast, but eventually when rotation happens, when the format maybe slows down a little bit, Evolution decks will really like to play Budew because item locking the opponent is obviously very powerful as you're shutting off cards like Poffin and stuff. So very good card for sure. But yeah, there you go. Those are the new cards revealed within Prismatic Evolutions. Interesting new set. I'm excited for it to come out in January. Obviously, it's a big collector set. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. And let me know what you think of these new cards down below. Do you think Budew's going to be good for the game? What do you think of the Regigigas? Do you think it's pretty funny they made a Charizard counter like it? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. We're on the road to 19K subs, and I'll catch you in another video very soon. Bye-bye.